The little girl hadn't spoken in 49 days. Not a whisper, not a word, not even when they asked her name. She just stared wide, unblinking at a world that had stopped making sense. Her name was Lily, and she was 6 years old. Her hair was dark and tangled, her eyes hollow with things no child should have seen. She'd been found hiding in a closet during a police raid, arms wrapped around her knees, heart hammering in her chest. The officers tried everything: social workers, therapists, toys and dolls and cartoons. Nothing reached her until they brought in the dog. His name was Ranger, a retired K-9 unit, yellow and black coat like a worn uniform, eyes sharp but tired. He'd served 7 years in narcotics and missing persons. And after his handler was injured in a shooting, Ranger was sent into early retirement. He didn't adjust well. Refused to eat, paced in his kennel. Snarled at strangers. He wasn't vicious, just unfinished. No one expected much when they brought him to Lily's temporary home. Just another failed attempt, but when Ranger walked in, Lily looked up. She didn't move. Didn't speak, but her gaze locked with his. And Ranger, he sat right in front of her. Close, but not touching, still, solid, present. Lily reached out slowly, fingers trembling, and placed her hand on his back. No one in the room breathed. It was the first time she'd touched anyone since that night. The lead officer, standing quietly in the corner, whispered, "Let's assign them to each other." And that was how a girl who had lost her voice and a dog who had lost his purpose took their first step back to the world, together. The officer's name was Mark Dalton. He'd been with the force for 19 years, first as patrol, then K-9 unit, then detective. He was steady, respected, the kind of man who rarely spoke unless it mattered. But since the loss of his son, Caleb, 3 years ago, Mark had become a different kind of quiet. Caleb had been 8. Bright, curious, obsessed with dinosaurs and blueberry pancakes. One rainy afternoon, a drunk driver ran a red light. There were no second chances. After that, Mark buried himself in work. He stopped cooking pancakes, stopped playing guitar, stopped believing in the softness of things. He didn't talk about Caleb, not even to Ranger. They had been partners for 6 years. Ranger was more than a working dog, he was family. But when Mark got injured on duty and pulled from active K-9 field work, Ranger was retired too. Separated, forgotten. Ranger didn't adjust well to the kennels. Mark didn't adjust well to the silence. So when the department offered him a new position overseeing trauma-informed cases involving children, he almost said no. But then he met Lily. She reminded him of Caleb. Not in how she looked, but in the way she held things inside. Tightly, silently, like a house with the windows locked shut. He reviewed her case files. Her mother had been arrested in a drug raid. Her father had disappeared, and Lily had watched everything unfold from behind a closet door. She hadn't said a word since. Her foster placements kept failing. She wouldn't sleep, wouldn't eat, wouldn't connect. That's when someone said, "What about Ranger?" Mark hesitated. Ranger was fragile now, older, unpredictable with new people. But the moment Lily placed her hand on Ranger's back, and he leaned gently into her, Mark knew something was different. There were 3 of them now. A girl with no words, a dog with no mission, and a man still trying to believe in healing, each of them broken. Each of them, perhaps, exactly what the other needed. The first few days were cautious. Mark moved carefully around Lily like someone walking through a house made of glass. He didn't ask her questions, didn't expect answers. He just made breakfast, left the hallway light on at night, and made sure Ranger was always nearby. Ranger slept by Lily's door, not because anyone told him to, but because that's where he knew he was needed. Lily didn't speak, but she watched. Watched as Mark filled Ranger's bowl with water. Watched as he brushed the dog's coat in long, patient strokes. Watched as Ranger followed Mark's every quiet command with a loyalty that didn't need words. And slowly, she began to mirror it. She'd trail behind Ranger like a shadow. When Mark left the room, she'd glance at the door. And when Ranger returned, she'd place her hand gently on his back like making sure he was still real. Mark started leaving small things on the table. A box of crayons, a new toothbrush, a flashlight for under the blanket when the dark got too big. He never pointed them out, but Lily used them. One night, Mark passed her room and paused. Lily lay curled beneath the covers. Ranger was at her feet, head resting on his paws. In Lily's hand was a crayon, and on the wall beside her bed taped gently with care was a drawing. 3 figures, one tall, one small, one with pointed ears and yellow and black fur. Above it, in shaky handwriting, "Not alone." Mark stood there for a long time, then went to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water, and whispered into the quiet, "Okay, we start here." It happened on a Tuesday. Rain tapped softly against the windows, and Lily sat on the living room rug, drawing. Ranger lay beside her, tail flicking gently as her crayon moved across the paper. Mark was in the kitchen, stirring soup chicken noodle, the only meal Lily would finish without being asked. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. But something told him to answer. "Detective Dalton?" A woman's voice, shaky, measured. "My name is Amanda Bell. I'm Lily's aunt." Mark's grip on the phone tightened. "Her case file says she has no family on record." "I didn't know she was alive," the woman said, breath catching. "My sister. We hadn't spoken in years. I didn't even know she had a child. Not until someone forwarded me the arrest news." Mark's chest tightened. "What do you want?" "To meet her. Please, I don't expect miracles. But if she has any family left, she should know." Mark didn't respond right away. He looked through the doorway, where Lily was now curled against Ranger's side, her drawing forgotten. "She doesn't talk," he said finally, "not since the raid." "Then I won't ask her to," Amanda whispered. "Just let me sit near her, once." Mark ended the call without answering. That night, he couldn't sleep. He stood in the hallway, watching the soft rise and fall of Lily's breath. Ranger looked up from her bedside, eyes calm, steady. Mark sat down on the floor, back against the wall, staring into the dim light. "What if she's not ready?" he whispered. Ranger didn't move, didn't blink, just laid his head back down like saying, "Then we wait, but we don't hide." The next morning, Mark told Lily someone wanted to visit. She didn't speak, but she looked at him, really looked. And for the first time, her hand reached out slow, uncertain, and found his. Mark didn't squeeze, he just let it stay there. That afternoon, Amanda arrived, and when Lily saw her, she didn't run, didn't speak. But she walked to Ranger, sat beside him, and looked straight into Amanda's eyes. Then she did something no one expected. She slid her drawing across the floor, the one with 3 figures, the one labeled "Not Alone," and Amanda began to cry. Amanda began visiting twice a week. She never came empty-handed, sometimes a box of muffins, sometimes a hand-knitted scarf, once a music box that played a lullaby Lily didn't recognize but didn't seem to mind. Lily never spoke, but she sat closer, held Ranger's for a little tighter when Amanda entered the room, watched everything. Mark remained cautious. He didn't trust Lily, not with children, not with promises. He'd seen too many people walk in claiming love and walk out when it got hard. But Amanda stayed. One evening, Mark found her sitting on the floor beside Lily, Ranger curled between them like a bridge. Amanda was showing Lily an old photo, 2 girls in bathing suits, holding popsicles, laughing. "That one," she said softly, "that's your mom, when we were your age." Lily stared, not smiling, but not turning away. Mark stood in the doorway and didn't interrupt. Later, Amanda said, "She looks just like her." Mark nodded. "She doesn't know what to do with that." Neither of them did. The next week, at school, Lily had a panic attack during fire drill. No flames, no danger, just the sound of the alarm. Her body froze. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't cry. The school called Mark. He drove like he was still in uniform. When he arrived, Lily was crouched behind a bookshelf, knees to her chest. She didn't register the counselor, but when Mark entered, and when Ranger padded quietly toward her, she blinked, reached, fell into his arms. Mark held her, not tightly, just enough to say, "You're safe. Breathe, Lily, just breathe. I've got you." That night, Lily drew a new picture. For figures this time, her, Ranger, Amanda, and Mark, no words beneath it. Just a single sun drawn high above them, rays wide and warm. Ranger didn't lead with noise. He led with presence. He was never trained for this kind of work, grief, silence, healing. But somehow, he knew when to sit closer, when to stay still, when to press his head against a hand that needed grounding more than words. Lily followed his rhythm. She began waking before the alarm just to greet him. She brushed his fur in slow, focused strokes, sometimes whispered things into his ear that no one else was allowed to hear. Mark noticed. He watched her stroke Ranger's chest when her breath got shallow, watched her hand go still on his back when the world around her felt loud. One day, Amanda arrived to find Lily in the backyard. She was teaching Ranger how to jump over sticks she'd lined up in a row. He wasn't as fast as he used to be. His hind legs stiffened in the cold, but he tried. Every single time. And Lily, she laughed, really laughed. Amanda covered her mouth, overcome. "It's the first time I've heard her do that," she whispered. Mark, watching through the window, said, "He brings the noise back." That night, Lily brought her sketchbook to the dinner table. She flipped to a new page. It was a picture of Ranger, wearing a tiny gold crown and cape. Above it, in shaky block letters, "My bravest friend." Mark reached across the table and tapped the drawing. "He's a hero." Lily nodded slowly. "He stays." It was the first full sentence she'd spoken directly to him. Mark felt his throat tighten. He looked at Ranger, who sat beside Lily's chair like a quiet sentinel. "Yeah, kid," he whispered. "He really does." It was supposed to be a normal day. Lily was scheduled for her first court appearance, not to testify, just to attend. A preliminary hearing about her mother's custody status. The social worker said it would help her feel included, feel seen. Mark wasn't so sure, but Lily had said yes when asked. So they dressed up, a soft sweater, clean jeans. Her hair in a braid Amanda had gently woven that morning. Anger wore his service vest, again deep blue, with a silver badge sewn near the collar. The courtroom was quiet, too quiet. Lily gripped Ranger's fur as they entered. Mark sat beside her, close but not crowding. Amanda waited outside, just in case. When her mother walked into the room, handcuffed, eyes red and hollow, Lily froze. The air changed. The buzz of fluorescent lights became a roar in her ears. Her body tensed, breath caught. Then, a single phrase from across the courtroom. "That's my daughter," and Lily broke. She screamed. Sharp, raw, from someplace buried and unreachable, she ran. Pushed past the pews, past the officers, past Amanda's outstretched arms. Right out the courthouse doors, Ranger bolted after her. Mark shouted, gave chase, down the marble steps, into the street, across the parking lot. They found her near the fence line, behind the courthouse, crouched, sobbing, fists clenched into her knees. Ranger stood in front of her, blocking the world, chest heaving, eyes fierce. He didn't let anyone near her until Mark dropped to his knees and whispered, "It's me, she's safe." Only then did Ranger step aside. Mark gathered Lily into his arms. "You're okay, I've got you, I've got you." She cried until her body went still. Ranger lay beside them both, a silent shield against the noise. Back at home, Lily wouldn't speak. Not that night, not the next, but she kept Ranger close. Didn't let go of his fur, not even in sleep. On the third day, she woke up, sat on the couch, and drew a new picture. This one was simple, two figures, a girl and a dog, both standing in front of something large and dark. Above them, one word, "Still." And below it, in tiny handwriting, "He didn't leave." After the courthouse, something in Lily changed, not broken, just opened. She didn't talk much, but she no longer hid. She sat closer to Mark at dinner. Let Amanda braid her hair without looking away. She started humming again, soft, low tunes Ranger would tilt his head toward. And Ranger, he stayed glued to her side. If she woke in the middle of the night, he was already there. If she had a bad dream, his paw would touch her shoulder before she even called out. Mark noticed she smiled more now, just a little. And only when she thought no one was watching. One afternoon, Amanda brought a box of old books, ones Lily's mother had loved as a child. Lily opened the lid slowly. Tucked between the covers was a worn-out copy of Goodnight Moon. She ran her fingers over the pages, then walked to Mark, holding the book out with both hands. "Can we read this?" she whispered. Mark took the book, his voice catching. He sat on the couch. Lily climbed beside him. Ranger curled at their feet, and he began to read. His voice was slow, steady, a little rusty. But Lily leaned her head against his arm. And when he reached the last page, she whispered, "My mom used to read that too." Mark didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. Just wrapped an arm around her shoulder, pulled her a little closer, and let the silence settle. Ranger thumped his tail once, as if to say, "That's enough." Fall crept in like a secret. The leaves turned amber, the air cooled. And the house felt full. Mark started packing school lunches again. Not for Caleb this time, for Lily. Peanut butter, carrot sticks, a little note folded under the napkin. Ranger says, "Good luck today." Lily smiled every time. She started sleeping through the night, started drawing things that weren't just shadows and silence. One day, she even drew a playground colorful, full of stick figure children. Herself in the middle, and beside her, always, Ranger. Mark found himself looking forward to her laughter, to her questions, to the quiet way she would sit beside him in the evenings, Ranger's head on her lap, her tiny fingers tangled in his fur. At school, she began to speak more. Not loud, not all the time, but enough. Enough that her teachers wrote home. She smiled today. She answered a question. She made a friend. Amanda came by more often, sometimes just to drink tea and sit on the porch. Once, she turned to Mark and said, "You've become her safe place." Mark looked at Ranger. "We both have." One night, Lily brought him a new drawing. A house, 3 windows, a tree out front. And on the roof, written in bold crayon letters, "Home." Mark didn't say anything. He just knelt beside her, pulled her gently into a hug, and let his heart catch up to what his eyes already knew. She was healing, and so was he, and Ranger. He lay at the front door, watching the street, still guarding, still waiting. But this time, not for danger. This time, for whatever came next. Lily wasn't the same little girl who came out of that closet. She was stronger now, still quiet, still cautious, but no longer invisible. She spoke when she needed to. She held Ranger's leash with confidence during walks. And she laughed real, bubbling laughter when Mark taught her how to make blueberry pancakes, Caleb's favorite. Mark wasn't the same either. He wasn't haunted by the silence anymore. He started playing guitar again, not loudly, just enough for Lily to hum along. And when Amanda asked how he was sleeping, he surprised himself by answering, "Better." One day, Lily brought home a writing assignment from school. The paper was titled, "Someone Who Makes Me Feel Safe." She had drawn a picture of Ranger, and below it, in careful print, she wrote, "He doesn't talk, but he knows. He stays when I'm scared. And because of him, I can be brave." Mark read it once, then again, and again. Then, that night, as Lily slept, he sat on the porch beside Ranger, both of them bathed in soft moonlight. "You gave her back to the world," Mark said. Ranger didn't move, just blinked, content. "And you gave me back, too," Mark added. He rested his hand on the dog's head, gently. "You're not just a canine, you're family." Ranger closed his eyes, not because he was tired, but because he was at peace. Some heroes bark, others simply stay. This isn't just a story about a little girl who stopped speaking, or a man who forgot how to feel, or even a dog with a yellow and black coat and eyes that understood too much. This is a story about returning to trust, to warmth, to the parts of yourself you thought were lost forever. Ranger didn't heal Lily with tricks or training. He did it by being there, by not running, by listening without needing words. And Mark, he didn't save Lily, she saved him. Because sometimes healing doesn't begin with answers, it begins with presence. It begins with someone who says nothing, but stays. If this story stayed with you, if a part of you saw yourself in Lily, in Mark, or in Ranger, then don't let it end here, because maybe you've been the one who was afraid to speak, or the one who didn't know how to help, or maybe the one who waited in silence hoping someone would come back. If you've ever been saved by quiet loyalty, by a love that didn't ask for anything, by someone or something that simply stayed, then let this be your moment to honor that. Like this video if you believe in second chances. Share it with someone who might need a little reminder that healing is possible. Subscribe for more true stories of quiet courage, human connection, and hope in unexpected places. And in the comments, tell us about your Ranger. The one who showed up when you didn't know how to ask. The one who didn't fix you, but stayed until you began to fix yourself. Because somewhere out there, someone is still waiting, still hurting, still needing a reason to believe that love, in its quietest form, still exists. Let your story be their reason. Thank you for being here. And remember, not all heroes speak. Some just sit beside you and never leave.